Shalom, Asherit here with another look at some scripture verses that I get questioned about a lot. There are some verses that seem to support a lunar-based calendar, such as Psalm 81:3. So let's take a closer look at Psalm 81:3 and see what we can discover. In English, Psalm 81:3 reads, "Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed, on our solemn feast day." However, let's break it down in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, Psalm 81:3 reads, "Tiku ba'kodesh shofar ba'kisah leyom haganu." Tiku means to blow. It's H8628. The B is a bait, and it's a prepositional indicator. It means in, on, or by. Kodesh is the month, H2320. Shofar is a trumpet, literally means a clear sound, H7782, sometimes specified as being a ram's horn in Joshua 6:4 and 8, for example. The ba, or the bait, is also a prepositional indicator. It means in, on, or by. Kisah, silver or money, H3677, which also means the seat of honor or a throne, used of kings, judges, and high priests, H3678. For example, 1 Samuel 1:9 and 4:13. Lay, to, or toward, or for, is the lamed, and it's also used as a prepositional indicator. And then yom, H3117, and then hag, festival, a gathering, an assembly, or a feast, H2282, and enu simply means hour. The word shofar means to make a clear sound, and its root word is shafar, H8231, which means to be bright, to glisten, or to polish. It is comparable in Arabic as meaning to shine forth as the dawn. In some passages, it is additionally specified to be a trumpet made from a ram's horn, such as Joshua 6 verses 4 and 8. I don't know why, but I always thought that a shofar was always a ram's horn. But if that were true, then there'd be no need to add that designation in some passages. It appears that it can apply to any variety of trumpets which produce a clear sound. To shine forth as the dawn, or to glisten, does sound more metallic to me, especially when you add in to polish. However, I have seen some beautiful shiny ram's horns, but I can't say they reminded me of the dawn. So let's break this down. Literally, it translates as blow on the month, trumpet, in silver, or in seat of honor, toward day, our festival. Now, of course, to make it understandable in English, we have to add some additional words. So, blow on the month, the trumpet in silver, or the trumpet in the seat of honor, to the day of our feast. Now, there's a second use of this word kisi, or kissa. In Proverbs 7:20, it reads, "He hath taken a bag of money with him, and will come home at the day appointed." Zeror ha-kesef lakek, beyado leyom ha-kise yabo beto. The word tezor means a binding or something bound up, a bag, a bundle, a pouch. That's H6872. Ha means the. Kesef means silver or money, H3701. La means to. Kek means to take or accept or obtain. Ba, again, is a prepositional indicator. It means in. Yad is hand, and u is his hand, bayado. The L is the lamed, also a prepositional indicator. It means to move towards, or to, or for the next word, which is yom, or day. So the lamed is a prepositional indicator. It means towards, to, or for, and it's tied to day, which is yom. Ha, again, is the, and kisa is silver or money, H3677. Also, the seat of honor or a throne used of kings, judges, or specifically the high priest. That is 3678. And you can also see it in 1 Samuel 1:9 and 4:13. Yah, he does or he is a third person masculine imperfect, and bo means to come, enter, or to go. Beit is house, and o is his, of his house or in his house. So let's break that verse down as well. Pouch the silver or money to take in his hand towards day, the seat of honor, high priest, or silver money. He does come to his house, or he does go to his house. So that could also read as the pouch of money he takes in his hand for the day, either of the seat of honor, meaning the high priest, or for the day of the silver money, and he does come or go to his home. So the only difference between kise and kise is the addition of vowel points in the Hebrew of these words, because they're spelled exactly the same. They're identical. If you research the word kise, which is only used 2 times, in Proverbs 7:20 and in Psalms 81:3, which I just read both of those, then you will see that it is used 135 times in 124 different verses in the Tanakh as designating a royal seat or a throne of either a king or a priest, 127 times. That is the meaning of that word, 127 times. Rarely is it used as a normal chair or a seat. It's translated as a seat 7 times and as a stool 1 time. But for 127 times, it designates a royal or lofty seat, which would be covered with a canopy or hangings. Both words have the same root word, kasa, a covering, to cover, to clothe, to put on, to spread over, or to cover for protection. And that's H3680. Now, take special note of the fact that Psalm 81:3 doesn't use the word moed for an appointed time, nor does it use the word yariach for a moon. Neither of those words are in the Hebrew of Psalm 81:3. Our English Bibles are translated from the Masoretic text. The addition of vowel points in the Masoretic text, which were not added until 700 to 800 CE, were changed for only these 2 words to apparently differentiate them from the normal understanding or definition of the word, which is used 127 times to mean a royal or lofty seat. Now, I spent a lot of time researching and going through the translator's notes and trying to understand what the translators were thinking when they translated it the way that they did into the English. So when you read the translator's notes, they literally have no idea where this word pronounced kisi in Proverbs and Psalms originated, or even how to translate them. So they merely fall back upon the Jewish lunar tradition instead. There's nothing in these 2 verses to suggest any correlation to the moon, apart from the Jewish tradition of a lunar calendar. No one reading these verses without the changed vowel points would reach such a conclusion or even translate it as they do, unless they were falling back on the Jewish tradition of lunar observance. It simply doesn't make any sense. The translators even theorize that perhaps it could be tied to the moon, because the Babylonian idols of the moon goddess Ishtar show her wearing a moon-shaped headdress. Thus, the moon was covering her head. Yep, That's all they've got. Zip, zero, and zilch. However, let's re-examine the context of Psalm 81:3 to see if we can get more clarification on what it actually means. Blow on the month, trumpet in silver, or blow on the month, trumpet in the seat of honor, toward day, our festival. Now, in Psalm 81:4, it continues on to say, "For this was a statute for Israel and a law of the Elohim of Jacob." Now, the word statute is chok, and it's H2706, an enactment, an appointment, a commandment, decree, statute, or ordinance. So when was observing the feast on a full moon ever given as a direct commandment, statute, or decree in the Torah? Well, never. It's not there. It simply doesn't exist. But let's see if we can narrow this down further by looking for a decree or a statute regarding the blowing of a trumpet and a Kodesh, or a month. If you would look at Numbers 10, verses 1 through 10, I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm going to pull some of them out specifically. In Numbers 10:1, it says, "And Yah spake unto Moses, saying, Make these 2 trumpets of silver. Of a whole piece shalt thou make them, that thou mayest use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journeying of the camps." In verse 3, "And when they shall blow with them, all the assembly shall assemble themselves to thee at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation." And skipping ahead to Numbers 10, verse 8, "And the sons of Aaron, the priests, shall blow with the trumpets, and they shall be to you for an ordinance forever throughout your generations." That's right, there is an ordinance involving trumpets right here in Numbers 10, verses 1 through 10. In fact, let's read verse 10. "Also in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginnings of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your Elohim, for I, Yah, am your Elohim." So now we have determined that there actually is an ordinance or a decree about blowing silver trumpets on the beginning of months, as Yah commanded in Numbers 10. Who did Yah command to observe this decree? Was it anyone in a lofty or exalted position? Well, we just read in Numbers 10, verse 8, that it was Aaron, the high priest, and his descendants that were to blow the trumpet. So is there a beginning of months, which is also one of our feasts, and perhaps is a feast that involves blowing trumpets? Well, let's look at Leviticus 23, verse 24. "Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, an holy convocation." Now, we just read in Numbers 10, verse 10, that it would be to you for a memorial before your Elohim. And here we have Yom Teruah, the day of the blowing of the trumpets, is also considered to be a memorial. It is a holy convocation or a holy assembling together of the people. This feast is specifically on the beginning of the 7th month on the 1st day, a solemn feast called the Memorial of Blowing. So which is more likely, that Psalm 81:3 is referring to a full Yariach, or moon, on a feast day, or rather to the 1st day of the Kodesh, or month, and the memorial of the blowing of trumpets called Yom Teruah? There's no question in my mind that Psalm 81:3 has less than zero to do with the moon establishing feast days, or even a full moon in that verse. It's just not in the Hebrew. Now, in the Hebrew, the silver trumpets are called ketzosarah, with the silver of the trumpets reflected in the ketso or kisse part of the word. Remember, the vowel points were added later, and I think they have caused more confusion than clarity. The call for assembly is a long blast on the silver trumpets, and the sound of the alarm are the series of short blasts on the silver trumpets. Of course, we know that silver was associated with the temple and the priests, as well as gold and bronze in the temple furnishings. However, later we also read that when Ezra left the Babylonian captivity of 70 years, and he gathered the people together at the river Ahava to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the walls and the temple, he could find no Levites among the people. There were Cohen, which are Aaronic priests, but no Levites. So Ezra sent for ministers for the house of Yah from a city called Kesiphiah. And as you can see, the word silver is again apparent in the name of the city where the Nethinims were living. Ezra 8:17. And I sent them with commandment unto Iddo, the chief at the place Kesiphiah. And I told them what they should say unto Iddo and to his brethren the Nethinims at the place Kesiphiah, that they should bring unto us ministers for the house of our Elohim. The Nethinims come from the word Natan or Nathan, which means gift. They were given to the temple to serve the Levites and the Kohanim or the Aaronic priests. The three sons of Levi all served in the tabernacle or temple. The sons of Kohath, which were Moses and Aaron, the sons of Merari, and the sons of Gershon. All of these descendants are Levites, but only those from the line of Kohath, i.e. Aaron, are called the Kohanim. You can read about that in Exodus chapter 6. Now let's consider the next few verses in Psalms 81. Psalm 81:5. This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt, where I heard a language that I understood not. And the next verse, Psalm 81:6. I removed his shoulder from the burden. His hands were delivered from the pots. So Psalm 81:5 tells us that a testimony or witness was appointed in Joseph when he went towards the land of Egypt, a speech he heard but didn't understand. I don't think that this is speaking of the Egyptian language as much as it is speaking to the heart of Joseph's misery and confusion. He didn't understand what Yah was doing in his life. Being sold into captivity had to have been devastating and hard for Joseph to comprehend. His faith was severely tested. He'd had everything, wealth, and his father's favor, and suddenly he's a slave in a foreign land. Every shred of faith in Yah Elohim must have been stretched to the breaking point and beyond. Through the valley of the shadow of death, all that Joseph had was his faith that Yah was still with him, even when it felt like Yah had surely abandoned him. Then his life began to improve in the house of Potiphar, and he must have felt blessed, even though his heart ached for his father and his family. He'd lost so much. Then, just when he'd finally built a better life, it was all swept out from under him, and he found himself a prisoner, an accused criminal, when he was completely innocent. I mean, maybe he could have been less annoying to his brothers, but in Potiphar's house, he'd really worked hard to be a perfect steward. But it didn't seem to matter. It all just turned into ashes. Even after he helped out the Pharaoh's butler, he was once again forgotten and left to live out his life in prison with no end in sight. Joseph's life had to feel endlessly full of pain. I think that Joseph's faith was all that he had left, and he refused to let it go. He had faith, a hope in that which was unseen and seemed impossible. Wow, sometimes life just feels like it's full of lemons. Nothing but bitterness, pain, and heartache, and it feels like our night of mourning will never, ever end. I like in verse 6, he says, I removed or turned aside his shoulder from the burden. His open hands, meaning the palms of his open hands, I caused to cross over the seething pots. I believe that this is speaking to the intense sanctification process that Joseph endured for 13 years and the burden of anguish which he carried. The open palms and the seething pots is a picture of the sanctification and the set-apartness of the priests, their hands open, serving Yah and being filled with their holy portions of the divided sacrifice in the baskets. Joseph's crushing burden created holiness, preparing him to serve Yah, to save the known world, and to finally save his own family. We read in verse 8, Thou callest in trouble, and I delivered thee. I answered thee in the secret place of thunder. I proved thee at the waters of Meribah, Selah. Here we see that Joseph was delivered after his time of testing, and that this was a testimony to the Israelites who were tested in Egypt and again at the bitter waters of Meribah. Yah didn't hate them. He was preparing them for what lay ahead to shape them into a holy and a set-apart nation, a people that trusted him and believed in his good plans for them, just like Joseph did. So how does this fit into the memorial of the blowing of trumpets, or Yom Teruah? It represents our hope, and it's our promise that one day the trumpets will blow and we will be delivered from our prison of testing. Our heads will be lifted up, and we will be elevated to rule and reign with Yeshua. Our burdens will be turned aside, and we will have our hands filled, sanctified, and holy to receive the sacrifices, the holy things of the seething pots. Everything that happened to Israel was for us to learn and be encouraged in this, the very end of the age. We mustn't grow faint-hearted and weary of doing good and stop just short of the finish line. Joseph is our testimony too, to keep walking in faith, no matter how dark the night is that we are walking through right now, although our circumstances may feel impossible. Just like Joseph's sitting in prison and Israel being crushed by a cruel Pharaoh, Yah is still in control. Don't lose heart, dear brothers and sisters. We will hear that long trumpet blast, and our loved ones will be raised from the dead. Our crushing burdens will be removed, and we will have joy in the morning in the never-ending light of our Messiah's return, our King, our High Priest, and our Judge. So whether you wish to consider the silver trumpets blown by the high priest on the Kodesh of Yom Teruah as the defining factor of Psalm 81:3, or the exalted seat of the high priest who was blowing those trumpets on the Kodesh, either way it is still referencing the feast day of Yom Teruah and not a full moon. This is not a veiled reference to Ishtar, the Babylonian moon goddess, wearing a full moon as her headdress. Even for those who follow a lunar-based calendar, the trumpet being blown is not in the middle of a month, but at the beginning of the month, which under a lunar-based calendar would be a dark moon or at the most a crescent moon. In our next study, we will look more closely at Psalm 104, and I hope that you will plan to join us for that study as well. On a quick note, we are concerned regarding the growing censorship across traditional social media platforms and the powerful coalitions which are pushing these different forms of censorship. Because the sons of darkness are more cunning than the sons of light, we are taking the scriptural advice to be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves by diversifying our message and our content. So we are currently in the process of setting up a Patreon account called Ancient Paths, where we can post study notes, videos, and produce podcasts, etc. Our goal is a bit more flexibility with what we can do and how quickly we can do it, as well as providing a platform where believers can connect with one another across the world and around the corner. So please watch for more information regarding our upcoming Patreon account, which we will be launching very soon. As always, thank you for joining me for this study, and Shalom.